Those of us who have been involved in the renaming of this street for Fred D. Gray Sr. are pleased that so many of you have found it appropriate and indeed necessary to join us for today's commemoration. Earlier this year, it seems like more than a year ago, Mayor Stephen Reed appointed a renaming committee. I was a member of that committee along with several others. We were tasked by the mayor with studying Montgomery streets and nominating, if you will, or recommending persons whose character and whose lives deserved commemoration by placing their names on streets, avenues here in Montgomery. We, of course, established a set of criteria. We decided that a street or a site, which could be a building or a park or another physical location, should be renamed to honor the person's life. That's the first goal. To restate public approval of the person's demonstrable values and exemplary behavior. To inspire others to embrace those values and mirror that behavior. And to create a historical record of public approval of the person's achievements. At the very top of our list, as a matter of fact, on the list we drew a line and then continued with the others. At the very top of our list was Fred D. Gray. Few people have the opportunity to live with and among legends. Many of you today who know Attorney Gray personally have had that opportunity to live with and among a legend, to observe that legend, to listen to talk. And I have dubbed some of us, myself included, the city of Montgomery. Some would argue accurately that it is decades late, but it is never ever untimely to pay tribute to those who have served us well, especially while they are living. So it is a pleasure for me to welcome you to today's observance and to advise that if you can get a chance, and if he is up to it, that if you have not done so, you take the opportunity to shake the hand of a legend. Reverend Ray Spellett will now give us the invocation.
Let us now look to the hills from whence cometh our help. Precious God, we thank you for this opportunity to note a life and a legacy that will live on long after these moments. We thank you that you send this way to this earth advocates who have the call and the commissioning to do the work of helping to bring justice and righteousness, allowing it to rain down in the tradition of the Hebrew prophets. We thank you that every now and then you send someone our way who has the tenacity to do what many will not do, who has the wisdom to do it well, who has the humility to do it for all, and who has the vocal and moral clarity to make sure the righteousness continues to echo your voice. Today we thank you for this opportunity to name this part of this city, acknowledging that as we put our hands to the work and as we put our minds together, we all have been called to put together a new city, a new world, a new creation that reflects your love and your light. We thank you right now, God, for this advocate who has done the work, God, of standing for and continuing to elucidate the truths of your spirit, of your truth. And we ask that this time would be a sacred occasion. We ask that you would meet us here And above all, we thank you that we're able to mark the moment, so we are able to be a part of that community of clarity that looks toward the next generation and marks those who have gone before. We have come a way that with tears has been watered. And on today, we thank you and we acknowledge that you have given gifts and advocates. And we pray all this in the name of that great advocate who now intercedes for us now and forever in the court of heaven. Let the people of God together say amen, amen. And amen.
speakers that you are about to hear are FGOs in their own right. Dr. Quentin Ross is president, of course, of Alabama State University, and I'm sure he will not complete his remarks unless he tells you that he's also a member of Fred Gray's fraternity, Omega Psi Phi. Randall Williams is not just the publisher of Fred Gray's autobiography, Bus Ride to Justice. Randall is a stalwart for civic justice in our community and has been for decades. And it is extremely appropriate for him to be here to reflect on our honoree. The Honorable Stephen L. Reed is a baby FGO. And he joins us today not just in his official capacity, but as a mentee, a lifelong mentee of Fred Gray. Dr. Ross.
Judge McPherson, Mayor Reed, Deus, and good morning to all of you. I truly am a benefactor of this great man, and we are so proud to be here. And when I look out at this wonderful audience, I just think as an educator what a teachable moment this is. A time that's worthy for schools to be dismissed. Thank you, Valley Cross. We're happy that you're here. Give them a round of applause. This is a teachable moment. And let me also recognize our trustee, the Honorable Judge Tiffany McCord, that's here with us today. But you truly are among family, Attorney Gray. And our family is here. And so good morning to all of you, and I'm honored to stand before you today to celebrate the life and the legacy of one of the nation's most impactful attorneys and civil rights champions, Attorney Fred David Gray Sr. I'm proud to say that Attorney Gray and I share a special connection in that we both are alumni of the Alabama State University. But also, as been stated, we are members of the greatest fraternity in the world, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Every day, as I carry out my duties as the university's 15th president, I'm reminded that I stand on the shoulders of great men and women, such as Attorney Gray, who have paved the way for so many ASU graduates to be successful in their chosen professions. Attorney Gray, your life is a shining example to all of us of what is possible when you pursue a purpose-driven destiny with passion, courage, and integrity. As a lifelong educator, I am well aware of the influences that one good teacher or professor can have on one's life. This is especially true as we pause to reflect on Attorney Gray's career accomplishments. In Mr. Gray's vernacular, I submit before you today the example of how the influence of an educator can propel an outstanding student like the young Fred Gray to achieve levels of greatness that positively impact the lives of generations of Americans. According to Mr. Gray, he is an attorney today because of his professor at Alabama State University. Dr. J.E. Pierce taught political science at Alabama State and was involved in the state of Alabama's early voter registration drives for African American citizens beginning in the late 1940s. Pierce had a tremendous impact on Mr. Gray and actually became the catalyst for him to change his career plans and attend law school, a decision that literally helped to change the course of, to destroy everything segregated.
we get our values from family and community. I'd like to broaden the picture just a little wider to say that today we honor not only Fred D. Gray Sr., but we also honor his parents, Abraham Gray and Nancy Jones Gray Arms, and his siblings, Samuel, Thomas, Pearl, and Hugh. Mr. Gray, the youngest of the five, was born in 1930. The others were all born in the 20s, almost a century ago. Hard to imagine. His father died 2 years later, and his mother became a single parent. History records that Ms. Nancy Gray was a domestic worker in white homes in Montgomery. But that is not even half the story. She was also a homemaker, literally a homemaker, because she made a remarkable home in which she raised remarkable children. She herself had only a 6th grade education, but of her 5 children, one became a psychologist, one a lawyer and judge, one a teacher and author, one a successful businessman, and one filed some lawsuits. Hers was a staggering accomplishment, especially considering the time and place. We must also honor the community which nurtured Mr. Gray. First, the one where he was born on Hercules Street in Washington Park, which was then a typical black community in Montgomery, with no paved streets, no running water, no inside bathrooms. And then his second community, really part of the same community, the one surrounding this street. We must also honor the nearby Holt Street Church of Christ, which played a major role in the lives of all the Grays. And the even closer, right there, Lovelace School, where Mr. Gray got his earliest education. The Nashville Christian Institute, his boarding high school. Alabama State College, now the Alabama State University, his undergraduate alma mater, and Western Reserve University, his law school. We also honor his late first wife, Bernice Hill Gray, and his present wife, Carol Ann Porter Gray, who supported and loved him across a combined 7 decades. We honor his 4 devoted and accomplished children, Deborah, Vanessa, Fred Jr., and Stanley, and their spouses and children. We honor those he credited with influencing his life, including legal giants Arthur Shores, Clifford Durr, Thurgood Marshall, Frank M. Johnson Jr., and many others. Ministers Marshall Keeble, Solomon S. Say, Martin Luther King Jr., and many others. And his clients, who include Rosa Parks, Dr. King, C.G. Gomillion, Claudette Colvin, Charlie Pollard, Herman Shaw, and so many others. For almost 70 years, he has been a legal rock tossed into a pond of segregation, discrimination, denial, abuse, and systemic inequality. The ripples he created continue to spread. Today, they spread out from a street that cuts through a community. The ripples widening over a history in which a rebellious, slave-holding traitor's name comes down, and the name of a world changer goes up. Honorable Fred E. Gray Sr., we salute you and we express our gratitude.
Good afternoon. It is very hard to follow such august speakers as we've had come before me, and so a lot of what I wish I thought about saying, they said, and a lot that I wanted to say, they said. But I certainly hope that the press that is here will take note of what Mr. Randall Williams just said toward the end, of the name that will come down and the name that will go up on streets throughout this city. I want to thank Judge McPherson for her leadership and for her example. She too, as well as that of her family, have been exemplary contributors to Montgomery and beyond. And there's not much one can do without Judge McPherson correcting you and without telling you what needs to be better and what needs to be done proper and in order. And for that, we asked her to lead this because she has not only been a student, she has been one who has been active in her profession and one who's been active in this community in so many ways, but certainly guiding and pushing so many of us to do things in order and to be better and to look beyond. As the mayor of Montgomery, I'm honored to represent all of the citizens of this great city. I want to thank our city council for their support of this initiative. I want to thank them for doing what had been done in the late 80s when Cleveland Avenue was changed to Rosa Parks Avenue, and when Goode Street was renamed after Edgar D. Nixon in 2007, better known as ED. And so it gives me a thrill to think about being a part of a city government that honors one of our treasured sons, not just a native son, but one of our most treasured sons that has been produced in over 200 years of this city's existence. To be a part of this is something that took longer than I thought. It was a lesson in government. And my father, who was here, former city councilman, Joe Reed, told me to take a lesson from that, learn a lesson from the idea to implementation. So often, history teaches us that it's just with a turn of the page that something was conceptualized and then it was done. And as he shared with me, many of the things that we now benefit from did not come just with a turn of a page, did not come just on a hope or a prayer. It came with action, and it came with tenacity, and it came with perseverance and dedication. And so I learned that in the almost 1 year since I introduced this to the council, to getting here this day, that patience is truly a virtue. And I certainly want to recognize all of the elected officials that are here who are striving to help Montgomery truly reach its full potential. I want to thank the students that are here, those that are in the band. Thank you to the leadership of the Mighty Marching Hornets, thank you for being the soundtrack to so many days and evenings growing up in Montgomery, just a couple of blocks away from the campus. To this choir, to this chorus, thank you for that stirring rendition of the Black National Anthem. If you don't know the history of that song, I encourage you to research it and look it up, because I don't know that it's been performed any better than what we just heard here today. And I think there's something poetic about the students that we have here, from Montgomery Public Schools to Valiant Cross Academy, the city employees, the police department, Montgomery Fire and Rescue, the various races and cultures and backgrounds that are here to honor Attorney Fred Gray. This is something that is special, and this is something that I hope that we all soak in, because this has not always been the case in this city. And it hasn't always been the case in this state. And as a nation grapples with some of the challenges right now, I hope that there'll be some takeaways of what we're doing here in Montgomery that reverberate far beyond the renaming of a street. Because as I sit here, I see I-65. And I see the trucks barreling through here, and you can see just over Loveless what took place decades ago. And you can see that men like Attorney Gray were needed at a time when it was difficult to answer the challenge. When the full weight of the state and federal government is pointed directly at you and other leaders and other community leaders, none elected at that time, grassroots leaders, elected by the community, elected by the people, though they held no office. They had titles, but more importantly, they had a purpose. And that is why we're here today. And that's why it was important for me recently to share with some folks about the story of discussing with Attorney Gray how he would like his city to honor him. And I did that shortly after being elected, because I watched and I'd heard Attorney Gray so many times growing up give so much credit to so many others and talk about so many other people, from Claudette Colvin to so many others that played a role, Judge Johnson and so many others that played a role at various stages of changing Montgomery, Alabama, and this nation. And so I'm happy to see the entire Gray family, children, grandchildren, descendants, all of us who have benefited from his work. And as I talked to Attorney Gray at the time, I didn't know what he would ask or what he would answer when I asked him the question of how he would like the city to honor him. But he told me a story about growing up on West Jeff Davis. And he told me what it meant to him and why that would be very important to him for this street to be renamed in his honor. And I found it to be poetic justice that we would be changing the name of someone who should never have been honored. To someone long ago should have been recognized and honored, not just by this city, but by this state and this nation. And so as he told me the story of growing up on West Jeff Davis, it made me think about just how we could get this done. But he gave me a sense of importance and a sense of significance that this community meant to him and means to him. And I think that's very significant, that we don't just think this is about the symbols. This is very much about the systems. This is very much about the systems that were in play and the systems that we seek to change. Because for what Attorney Gray did throughout the course of his career, and what he continues to do, as he reminded me that he still practices law and still has a law office in Montgomery, is that he continues to fight and he continues to take up the cause. But the community, he didn't ask for the municipal courthouse to be named in his honor. He didn't ask for the law library to be named in his honor. He asked for this street because of what it means. And I hope that for those that live in this community that have felt left out and left behind, that they see by the turnout here, the institutions that are represented, the people, the faith leaders, the community leaders, that we haven't forgotten about you. Oh, we have great plans for you. I'll be sharing those on a different day. But we've got great plans for this school, for this community. And so I don't want somebody to be driving or walking or riding a bicycle on Fred Gray Avenue and feel sorry for the people who grew up here, because it produced men like him and many more who are not here today. But as I think about what he told me it meant, I thought about a poem written by Langston Hughes, and it's entitled Mother to Son. And I want to read this in its entirety, and then I will close and take my seat so that the man of the hour, the man of the day, the man of the month, the man of the year, the man of the decade, the man of the century can come speak. But Langston Hughes, the great Harlem Renaissance poet, wrote in Mother to Son, well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tacks in it, and splinters, and boards torn up, and places with no carpet on the floor, bare. But all the time, I've been a-climbing on, and reaching landings, and turning corners, and sometimes going in the dark, where there ain't been no light. So boy, don't you turn back. Don't you sit down on those steps, because you finds it's kind of hard. Don't you fall now, for I'm still going, honey. I'm still climbing. And life for me ain't been no crystal stair. I share that story not because of its historical relevance or significance, but for the underlying premise that life for Attorney Gray ain't been no crystal stair. And life for many who grew up in this community and many who have benefited ain't been no crystal stair. But it's up to us to continue moving. It's up to us to carry the baton a little bit further, a little bit faster, and find a way to do what Attorney Gray did and continues to do so many decades ago. And that is to tear down the systems of oppression, to tear down the systems of racism, and to tear down the systems that continue to hold back people from their true calling and potential. And that's why we're here, to honor him. That's why I felt the need to go see Attorney Gray. And that's why I now say that this is one step of how we should honor Attorney Gray. But the next step that I hope that we will take away from the life, from the lessons, and the legacy is that we will ask President Joe Biden and my friend, Vice President Kamala Harris, to award Attorney Fred D. Gray with the Presidential Medal of Freedom right away and due time. Attorney Gray, Mrs. Gray, thank you so much for your service. Thank you for your dedication, and thank you for your compassion for your community, never forgetting where you came from, never forgetting what this community meant to you, and we hope that in some small way that this recognition, while long overdue, honors you in the way that you deem appropriate. And we will not be finished today, as we will take this call to Washington to make sure that the Presidential Medal of Freedom is awarded to you for the work that you've been done. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
What do you say when you listen to these great persons speak about you? I just want to say thank you. Thank you. And thank you. To Judge, to President of my alma mater, to my friend Randall Williams, my publisher of my book, published it when nobody else would publish it. I want to thank the members. I thank the mayor for what he has done. And when he asked me some time ago when he came to my office, I think about the 21st of August of 2020, what I wanted, and I told him, and I haven't talked with him about it since he left me to work. I thought you might be interested in seeing a picture that was made of him in our office in Tuskegee when he asked me what I wanted, and I want to thank you so very much for that. But before I get to these, let me also thank, and I want to be sure I say it the right way. Not only do I want to thank the mayor for what he did and is doing. I'm happy to have represented his father when he was a student, and then to serve as his lawyer when he was executive director of Alabama State Teachers Association and was able to merge it with AEA. I also want to thank the members of the City Council for what they did. And I want to share with you a part of a letter that I wrote the mayor and the City Council. And this is what it said. I write to say thank you and express profound gratitude for the city's recent action to rename Jeff Davis Avenue to Fred D. Gray Avenue in my honor. May I read? Your leadership and the council's bold act of recognition, in my opinion, demonstrates that the government of the city of Montgomery, Alabama is in good hands. Let's give them a hand. I want to thank also the members of the Montgomery City Planning Commission for their participation in their recommendation to the council, and to the residents and the property owners of people who live on Jeff Davis, who voted to change the name of that street. I want to thank all who played a role in making it possible for you to honor me today. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of several persons, particularly my wife Carol, who, when I lost my first wife, Bernice, who's the father of our children and great-grandchildren, and when I met her after her death, and I wasn't looking for, I was wanting somebody who wanted to take care of me. And I told her that. I said, if you take care of me, I'll take care of you. And now for over 20 years, she has taken care of me. Thank you so very, very much. I'm thankful for my first wife, Bernice, because she suffered during all these times. She helped to write the book. She gave birth to our children. She insisted that I end up writing a book so that at least history would record what had taken place. And I appreciate so much. And my brother-in-law, her brother is here, Albert Hill, and his wife. Acknowledge the presence of all my children, and you can stand up, and grandchildren. Thank you very much. And my niece, Karen, and her husband, Bart Nesbitt. She has written a book on the Montgomery bus boycott, a daughter of the Montgomery bus boycott. So all of the other relatives of mine, will you please stand up? So all these relatives. They helped to make this possible. And this could not have been possible for me to have done whatever it is because I've had so many lawyers to help me. But my legal staff for over 65 years. And of all our members of our staff, you stand, and the lawyers of our law firm. Walter McGowan and Fred Jr. and Stanley Gray. And unfortunately, Bridget Gray, who is Fred's wife, lost her mother, and she's out in Seattle. And let us remember them in our prayers. And I just want to thank all of you for everything you have done. This means a great deal to me. I went down memory lane today, and I want to thank Mr. Motley who drove us over. And I drove through this community. The community today is not the way it was when I used to live here. But I drove on Day Street, and I drove on West Jeff Davis, about 3 or 4 blocks from here, where I grew up, where houses are now in the street no longer is there. I went by my home house at which used to be 135 Hercules Street, and saw the little pink house. I went out in Mobile Heights, where I grew up and where the children were basically born, and where the Tom family lived, and saw that. And I just want you to know that this street means a great deal. And then we went by our law office here. We want you to know that we were able to do these things because you in Montgomery and elsewhere gave us the opportunity of representing you, and we are still here to render that type of service to you in this city, just like I did. And I hope, even when I'm gone, that whoever controls our law firm will continue to have an office in Montgomery, because it all started in this city. And I am just proud to be able to say that I'm a part of it. When I grew up, walking from 4 or 5 blocks down on unpaved street, we had a city dump between Murray Street and what is now Hill Street, and where the school is down there. And I used to catch the bus, South Jackson Street going that way, Washington Park bus, it was coming this way. And I'm just delighted that this community, the school over there was then Lovely School, and the first education I had for the first 7 years was there. I caught the bus and sometime walked, Mr. President, from here all the way to Alabama State. There was a group of us used to do it. And whatever education, as has been indicated, I received at Alabama State, while I was living on this street, it really was, and when I saw our problems that existed later, I was just happy to live on the street. Didn't know anything about who Jefferson Davis was, and that wasn't the determining fact. The fact is, when I was asked about it, if it had been Oak Street or Day Street or Washington Park or Mobile Road, I would have still felt that I would like the street that I lived on because I lived on this street during that period of time. So I am very, very appreciative. I'm also appreciative to you because it comes during the sun setting in my career. I will be 91 if the Lord bless me to live to December 14th. And I've been practicing for over 65 years. And all of that came about because of what I learned while I lived on this street. I then humbly accept this recognition, not on behalf of all these clients that I've represented, and Randall told you about some of them, the President told you about some of them, and if you want to read about the rest of them, you can read it in Bus Ride to Justice. I'm particularly proud and honored to accept it on behalf of my first civil rights case, Claudette Colvin, who at 15 did the same thing that Rosa Parks did without the knowledge, without the experience that she had, but she was able to do it, and I understand she's going to be honored sometime later on here today. And we're thankful for her, but she was the first one. And I guess maybe the last civil rights case, I just filed one along with the other lawyers in our firm so that the Macon County can get the land in front of the courthouse that was given away some years ago. So on behalf of those clients, and particularly since we're right next to a school, the case of Carr versus the Board of Education, the students, and not only that, I accept it on behalf of all of the students from kindergarten through graduate school who have benefited from cases that I filed in the very federal courts here. I didn't do it alone. I had enough sense to begin with to get other lawyers from across the country to help with those cases. So I accept it on behalf of the men in the infamous Tuskegee Sister study. When we were doing things and filing suits against the state of Alabama and the federal government was helping us, we then found out that the federal government itself was involved in a deadly deception based on race. So then, not only that, it is with deep humility that I accept this recognition on behalf of all those unknown heroes and clients whose names never appear in print media, whose faces never appear on television. These are the persons that laid the foundation so that you may honor me here today. I accept this honor for them. But I want to tell you before I close that the struggle for equal justice has not ended. We are still living in basically a society that has two basic problems: racism and inequality. They are still there. We still have the responsibility. And I say to you students at Alabama State and across the nation, that when I was a student, I decided I would try to do something about segregation and made a commitment to do everything I could do to destroy segregation wherever I found it. You don't wait on somebody to tell you what to do, but make up your mind, see what these problems are, and get out to help to solve the problem. We still need to do away with racism. We have to acknowledge it. Not only after acknowledging it, we have to come up with a plan. If we had not had a plan, and Joanne Robinson and I planned in her living room about the Montgomery bus boycott, it wouldn't have occurred when it occurred. However, you have to have a plan, you have to implement the plan, and then you have to decide that you are going to be willing to participate in doing away with racism and doing away with inequality. And if it won't get done if you are not willing to end up doing it. Therefore, thanks for the recognition. I pledge to you that I will continue to fight for equal justice under the law and for the proper execution of the rule of law until all of God's children are truly free and equal. Thank you, and may God bless you.
Attorney Gray will now unveil the street sign, the very first street sign.
Oh, whatever y'all say.